Mother Knows Death, starring Nicole and Jemmy and Maria QK.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to Mother Knows Death. Let's get started with the story of the day. This one is so unbelievable to me. So in Peru, this 28-year-old guy gets to the airport and they pull him aside at security because they're like, your stomach looks a little bit too bulky, right? So then they take him back to do a search, and when they lifted up his shirt, they found that he had over 300 tarantulas strapped to his body. When you go to the airport, I thought that you walked through some machine that gave you this low-grade x-ray when you were walking through just to check on every single person. You know that that little machine that you have to like stand with your arms up, and it looks like one of those entryways that you know when you go in a doorway and it's like a glass revolving door. Yeah, when you have to like hold your arms up all awkward. Like, doesn't everyone have to go through that at every airport, or is that not a thing? Well, I don't know at international airports if that exists there. And also, I think they might have flagged him before he even got in the security line. So, yeah, just did he think he was getting away with this? No. So, not only that, he had 320 tarantulas strapped to his body, 110 centipedes, and 9 bullet ants. So, my first question is, like, how are these strapped? Because visually in my mind, when I'm first reading this story, I see all these bugs individually taped onto his abdomen, which I know is ridiculous. But visually, that's just where it went. Visually, that's just where my mind went. So, of course, we looked into it, and it's like he has these things in essentially like Ziploc bags. He also had them in these, like tubular plastic things that probably under his shirt looked like pipe bombs. So, of course, they're going to start freaking out. And they're thinking that he went into the Amazon and illegally took these to participate in some like wildlife trafficking and sell them online. Yeah, of course. He would make a shit ton of money. They go for a lot of money. Also, I don't think I realized how large tarantulas are. I'm just thinking they're these like, bigger spiders that you would see in your house. This thing is like bigger than a hamster. I want one so bad, but Gabe's just like, I'm drawing the line there. And I think Natalie actually said that she wouldn't come to our house anymore and babysit the kids if I had a spider like that in the house. I'm not coming to your house anymore, which is just ridiculous. But all right, so the good news is, from a medical perspective, tarantulas, although they're considered venomous, they don't really, there's rare cases where they actually kill a human. Same with these giant centipedes and these ants. The thing is that this, to me, is just more of a mental thing. More than, it's just like getting a bee sting or whatever. It's not that big of a deal if you get bit by one, unless, of course, you're allergic to them. But the allergies to these types of things aren't as high as a bee sting would be. But it's not really going to hurt the dude if he actually gets bit by one of these things. It's more just, the thought of it is just the most terrible thing ever, to just have these things crawling on you. Well, I feel the worst for the airport employees that had to deal with this. And then if you find this, do you call the cops? Do you have to call, like a fish and wildlife type of police service? I don't know. There's this really cool episode. This is kind of a side note, but not at the same time. There was this show that was on back in the day with Dr. Bodden called Autopsy. It was back in the 90s. It was like one of the first original shows that showed our job. And it's a really, really good show and a good portrayal. And there's an episode of them talking about the wildlife and fish organization. I don't know exactly what it's called, but talking about how people are illegally poaching animals and stuff. And there's this whole forensic unit of it, which is really cool. That's in America, but it's all over the place because they don't want you to be taking animals or other plants or anything from other countries and across, because that could just lead to really big problems. Didn't you talk to Dr. Bird about this a little bit? Yeah, I did, actually, because he's a forensic entomologist and who's a forensic expert that studies bugs and their effect on dead bodies and things like that, but also just in general, this is a whole other branch of it as well. So you could bring disease and just ruin agriculture and everything by transporting things like that. I was even telling you when we take our trip to the Southwest later this year, about how I just want to take a bunch of cacti that I find and take them home, you know what I mean? But like, you just can't do that on an airplane. So, um, I don't know what this guy was thinking he was going to get away with this, but what a moron. Yeah, I don't even know how you think you could do something like this and not get caught. So, good try, I guess. Wasn't worth it at the end of the day. Okay, celebrity news. All right, let's talk about this Conor McGregor trial. So, if you were listening to this show before we launched it as Mother Knows Death, we had covered the story about Conor McGregor allegedly raping this woman at the 2023 NBA final. So, there had been video showing him shoving this woman in a bathroom and then his security blocking the door. Her friend was saying that she couldn't get in the bathroom to see what was going on, and it turned into this whole thing. So when I first saw that he was on this civil trial for sexual assault, I assumed it was connected to that case, but it's not. It's a totally different one from 2018. Yeah, so I think it's pretty well known what this guy's intentions are, right? He's been accused of this multiple times, and yeah, some of the stories seem really legit, and there's proof of it. And first, I want to say this as a preface to this whole entire story, that my husband did a photo shoot for his alcohol company. And so there's pictures of my husband with this guy all over trucks across America. But I just want to say that we don't know him. We are not friends with him. We do not support him. And my husband was literally a paid first responder model for the advertisement. Clearly not paid enough, because we did not know that his face was going to be on Proper 12 trucks all over America. Side note. But yeah, just to let you guys know, we don't have anything to do with that guy. That was the first and only time that Gabe has ever seen him. So, not a fan from all of these stories I'm hearing. It just seems like he's just the typical famous person getting away with this shit. And maybe for once he finally got what he deserves. Yeah, I mean, yeah, that was totally a situation. Like, I worked on that photo shoot with Gabe and everything, and it was like a family friend set us up with it. Gabe was strictly a model. We don't know the guy. We had a good experience with him, but that doesn't mean you know how people act behind closed doors. So, like, I don't know. But we just wanted to set the tone for this because we want to talk about, you know, the facts of this case coming up. But, like, that is a thing, and a lot of people send us that picture of him on the side of the truck, and we don't know it. Okay. So this case is about this, situation that happened back in 2018. So this woman claimed that Conor McGregor and another MMA fighter, James Lawrence, had raped her in the penthouse of a hotel after they offered her a ride home from a Christmas party. So she had at first tried to get them criminally prosecuted for this, but I guess the officials over there decided they weren't going to do it. And so she brought forth this civil trial. So I wonder what the reasoning was for them not going through with criminal charges, by the way. But I mean, it could have been we're going to talk about the key piece of evidence coming up in this trial, but maybe they didn't think they had enough. I also think they knew this was going to be a crazy media spectacle because of how famous he is. I also think really famous people get a pass in the eyes of the law sometimes. So I feel like in the last couple of years, that's been kind of being undone a lot with people being convicted, but we'll really see if that rings true with Diddy and all this other stuff coming up over the next couple years. So basically, they're saying they did have sex with this woman, but that it was consensual. And she's saying there's no way it was consensual because the key piece of evidence in this case is that she had a tampon lodged really far up in her vagina after the alleged assault happened. Well, her testimony was that she didn't want to have sex because she had her period and she had a tampon in. And some of the proof in this case is that she went to get a sexual assault examination the following morning. And when doctors examined her and saw that not only she had an insane amount of bruising all over her body, looking like that she was physically assaulted, she had a tampon that was shoved so far up her vagina that they had to actually use a speculum and go inside and use forceps to pull it out. So I think a lot of the back and forth in this particular case is simple question, can you have sex with a tampon in? Yeah, and both the fighters are, which first of all, I want to point out that she says she has no recollection of having sex with the second guy. And I guess after the reports came out that she was accusing Conor McGregor of this, that he went to police and said, I also had consensual sex with her that night. So then she sued him too because and I think she said, like, if you didn't even come out and say this, I wouldn't even have known you were there, basically. And you wouldn't be wrapped up in all of this. And at the end of the day, he was found, to not have sexually assaulted her. But basically, for both men, they're saying that they didn't remember seeing a tampon. They didn't remember seeing any blood. I just think it's interesting, But when you're just shoving your penis in somebody, I don't think you're realizing something else is in there. Well, I don't know if that's true necessarily, because I think that guys, especially him who seems like he's had a penis in someone a lot often, right, that he should be able to feel if there's something inside that feels different. I don't know because I'm not a dude and I don't know what that feels like. But also, wasn't he drunk and high on cocaine at the same time? Like, it just might have been a different experience. But I'm not here to determine what happened because I wasn't there for the trial. I wasn't there for the alleged rape. All I want to do is say that a lot of people are saying, oh, they possibly couldn't have had sex because she had a tampon in, and that's just simply not true. They absolutely could have had sex, and it happens to more women than you think, that women go into the emergency room with a tampon that's been stuck up there for an extended period of time. I specifically had gotten one in surgical pathology years ago that was up inside of a woman for an older woman for a very, very, very long time. So, the anatomy of the vagina, for those of you who don't 100% understand it, is that it is a very long tube, obviously, that could fit a penis, but it also could fit a baby, right? So, like, think about how much this thing could stretch very easily. But at the top of the vagina is the cervix, which leads to the uterus. And that's where blood comes out of this tiny hole called the cervical os, a little hole. There's these pockets that go on each side of the vagina called the vaginal fornix. And it kind of circles around the entire cervix. But there are pockets, like you could store stuff up there technically. So a tampon that's filled with blood can get shoved up inside of one of those pockets, and you wouldn't even really be able to feel it when you were having sex because the penis doesn't always typically go up one of those pockets so deep. But just to give you a little example of what those pockets are, if you've ever heard of the G spot, like you have to get like up in there and kind of up inside of one of those pockets to reach up there. So that's what you're talking about. So a tampon could easily get shoved up there, especially if it was a smaller one. So I don't think it's out of the norm to even think that that's possible. Yeah, and what I was referencing earlier about him possibly not feeling it is because other couples have come out. We've had other cases on here and in the gross room where people say they have had sex with, a consensual sex with their partner, and they didn't even realize it was in there until, they started having like an infection or something later related to it being Usually
jammed
it's
up there.
a foul odor that they don't know what the cause of it is because it's stuck up there. And a lot of, like, people go back and forth to say there's some people that are just like, there's absolutely no way anything else could fit up there. But come on, like, that's not true. Yeah, so at the end of the day, they did this, civil trial. They did find Conor McGregor guilty of the sexual assault, to which he is very infuriated by. I think his team was really trying to paint her as this gold digger, but, she was like, I tried to get him criminally prosecuted and they didn't want to go forward with it, and I'm not just going to let this guy walk around and keep acting like this. So I wanted to take action and speak up, which I think it's brave of her to go against such a wealthy, famous person, and it was a victory for her to win. His fiance, who is the mother of his 4 children, and his mother and sister were by his side during this entire thing. afterwards, other women are coming forward saying that he raped them. We know of that NBA final situation that happened last summer. I'm curious what's going to happen over the next couple of years if they're going to continue filing
Yeah, I mean,
lawsuits
that's
as
just a
well.
whole other story for another day of just like, and he actually, he didn't admit to raping her, obviously, but he admitted to having sex with her. So, like, I don't even understand how you're standing there with your guy on trial for raping someone when he's saying he had consensual sex with her. It's like, let's not even start talking about supporting this, but I mean, it's just gross how people like let things slide because they're with someone that has money or whatever. And I understand he's like the father of your children and everything, but like this is not a rarity that this guy has been accused of this. You know what I mean? It's not like someone that you're like this because people do accuse people of rape when it hasn't happened, right? It's definitely it's not like every single person that says it, but like this guy, you're like, come on, like this is kind of believable in my opinion.
I think that there's this, kind of rumor out there that these Hollywood people have, these arrangements with their partners being like, you travel a lot. We're not going to be together all the time. Do whatever you find you need to do, but don't embarrass me kind of deal. So I don't know if they have some agreement to have some open
That's certainly not
relationship.
happening here because I feel like she's getting embarrassed plenty.
Yeah, well, I think they're high school sweethearts. They've been together for an incredibly long time. They have 4 children, and I don't know if they have some agreed upon open relationship, but I saw he's trying to, go all over the media as of this morning saying he feels guilty for cheating on her. So I'm going to
Because
say
this was
maybe
the
not.
first time, right?
Well, it's certainly not the first time, and I also think, he's embarrassing her. I think even if you were okay with him having sex or willing to turn, you know, to a blind eye to, like, not caring about it happening or something, now that rape's involved and he is convicted of it, not just a speculation or an allegation anymore, you have to really reevaluate what that means and who you're
All right.
associated with,
So
so
this is where things need to change though, because he's not going to jail for this. This is all just a civil trial and he has to pay money and whatever it was, $250,000 or
yeah.
right? It's nothing for him, right?
No, I mean,
Okay.
he made $80 million off of one fight. Like, this is the kind of money this guy
Exactly. So
makes.
this is nothing to him.
Yeah, I mean, I just hope this whole thing, I hope he's not able to use his resources to get it overturned or anything. I hope this woman continues to get the justice she deserves. And I don't
It
know.
doesn't even really matter though, because it's like if it gets overturned, like it's not there's nothing really. Listen, if you told me to that I had to pay somebody $5 because that's what it's equivalent to him, you'd be like, okay, take the money and move on with life. You know what I mean? Like, even if they say, okay, it's not guilty now, like it doesn't matter. The reputation's tarnished. You know what I mean? So he's not gonna have to serve any time. It doesn't matter. His wife knows about everything, every little detail about what happened in the room. Like when I'm reading all of these details, I'm just like, if I was reading this about how my husband was acting, I would be like, oh, hell no. This is so embarrassing. This is so upsetting to think like that's what your dude's doing behind your back. You know what I mean?
I just feel like he's really thrived off of having this reputation of being an insane person. And now that there's actual harm, it's not like, WWE style, showmanship anymore. It's like you're attacking people and you're assaulting people and now you're a convicted rapist. So it's time to dial it back.
Okay. Freak accident.
So on Friday, this guy in his 60s was on a trip in Tasmania and he was kayaking with a group of people on the Franklin River and suddenly his leg got stuck between some rocks and it took them over 20 hours to rescue him.
I was thinking of how I never really thought about this when people go on these vacations and destination trips to do extreme sports and stuff. This is a situation where you put the rescuers in danger too, because, when Gabe was just at Asheville to do the hurricane rescue and everything, for these guys to go in rapid waters like that is just extremely dangerous. And to think you would have to stabilize yourself somehow in that water to get someone that's trapped in a rock with rapidly moving water that might be cold, and then someone has to surgically try to amputate this guy's leg in a boat like that. It's kind of cool that they were even able to save his life, honestly.
Yeah, so basically the way the group said that they were taking a break, so they pulled off to the side, and the man had slipped and got his leg caught in between these rocks, and his condition started deteriorating when the authorities were called. I think they were only able to call for help because he was wearing a smartwatch also. So that's interesting, because if he wasn't wearing that, were they not going to be able to get a hold of anybody to help him? And basically when they got there, he was stuck and he was deteriorating, so they had to make the decision to amputate his leg because otherwise he was going to die.
Yeah.
So,
And then they did medevac him to a hospital, and he's in critical condition. I'm just really curious how that whole scene went down of someone amputating his leg like that, just in that kind of a situation. We've talked about this before, and I have a case in my book of a woman who was in a car accident that had to have her arm amputated at the scene, but that's a little bit more stable for the surgeon that's doing it. They're outside and they're in a situation where they're safe and they could keep their arms still because they're not in a boat that's getting blasted by water and stuff. The whole thing is so outrageous to me.
well, I imagine that's why it took 20 hours because of how complicated the situation was.
Yeah, those rescuers get mad props.
All
Yeah,
right.
they really do.
True crime. All right. Last summer, this guy took his girlfriend, his one niece, and 3 nephews on a trip from New York to Florida. So as they approached the border of Florida on 95, he slowed his car down on the highway to about 1 to 2 miles an hour. It was the middle of the night. He saw the Florida welcomes you sign, and he was trying to take a picture of it. Well, the problem is the car behind them didn't realize they were slowing down, which was going approximately 70 miles per hour, and plowed into the back of the car, killing all the children in the back seat.
This is so fucked up, this whole story. Like, because this is so relatable, because we take road trips all the time and you always see the sign, but you're on the highway and you're like, oh, guys, look, it says welcome to Florida, and that's it. Like, why would you ever slow down to almost a complete stop in the middle of a freaking highway?
Yeah, I mean, what's also not relatable, however, is having 4 children in a 3-seat back seat and 3 of them not wearing seatbelts.
Yeah.
Why are children not wearing seatbelts?
Well, these kids were 12. So it looks like there was a 12-year-old, 2 14-year-olds, and how old was the 4th one?
There was 2 14-year-olds. I think they were twins.
Oh, okay. So, but that's only 3 ages that I'm saying.
Hold on. 10, 12, and 2
10,
14-year-olds.
okay, yeah. So they're all older kids. They shouldn't be in car seats, but they definitely have to be in seatbelts. I won't even if I ever have to do a situation where I'm taking multiple kids somewhere, you know this. Like, one time we had a party after school, and I had to bring home like X amount of kids, and I sent Maria to the school. I went to the school, and Gabe went to the school, so we could pick up all the kids so they each had a seatbelt, because I just would never put a child in a car without a seatbelt at this point, just knowing everything that you know. So obviously cars almost stopped and gets hit by someone going 70 miles an hour. So I'm sure they ejected, went through the windshield. 3 died at the scene. 1 went to the hospital. 1 ended up dying at the hospital. And I really feel the most terrible for the person who hit them, because that very well could have happened to us. We're always driving at 4 o'clock in the morning on trips and stuff like that. Like, you don't think somebody's going to be at a complete freaking stop in the middle of the highway?
No, I mean, it's absolutely like, what are you doing? Then apparently his license was suspended. So it's like, why are you driving with a suspended license so far?
Well, everybody does that. I did it once, actually.
Oh my God. Don't admit that.
I did, because my license got suspended for some stupid thing of me not sending in my license plates or something from an old car. It was like something completely ridiculous. But whatever.
Oh my God.
It's not that big of a deal, please. That's not the big deal here, okay? I think there's other issues that he had his license suspended.
Okay, well, his license was suspended. He was a complete idiot and stopped in the middle of the highway. I mean, they're saying the minimum. They said the minimum on 95 down there is 40 miles an hour. I didn't even know there was a minimum speed limit, right? Like, I guess people
There
do drive really
there
slow,
is,
but
and I think that it's for certain circumstances, probably more so that when a big storm comes in and it's like pouring rain and all this stuff, like people slow down. I don't know. They have to do a minimum because it's kind of telling you like you should be aware that there might be cars going slower than you. So just like proceed with care. You definitely don't think that there's going to be cars that are literally parked out front. It's just, the whole entire thing is just so dumb. Like if you really wanted to take a picture, just pull aside to the shoulder and get out and all take a picture in front of the sign.
yeah, I mean, it's just completely idiotic. But basically, he's facing 4 counts of aggravated manslaughter of a child and driving with a license suspended or revoked, causing great bodily injury. Don't pull over like that to take a picture. It is not worth it.
The whole thing that's just really upsetting about this to me is that like this guy he's a fucking idiot, right? But he was like, it looked like he was taking his family on vacation. He wasn't like a child from what we know. He wasn't a child abuser. He just was just like trying to take all these people in a car that they didn't all fit in, but he was trying to do something nice, it seems.
Yeah.
So that's what just is so infuriating about this, because the guy's just dumb. He's not like, I don't think he intentionally tried to hurt these children. You know what I mean? He's just dumb. And when I was a kid back in the day, if you had 4 children in the back of a seat without seatbelts, like that wouldn't even have been a thing. That was like called normal 1980s shit, right? So it's just like,
Well, there's a reason the
no,
laws have changed.
I understand that, but I'm just saying, like the guy, I'm sure he feels terrible. Who were the kids, and were they like?
It said his nieces and nephews.
Yeah,
I mean,
like I'm sure he feels terrible about it. It's just like just everybody's going to feel terrible for the rest of their life because you were dumb, you know?
Yeah. All right. So over the last couple of weeks, reports have been coming out that many tourists in Laos are getting sick and have even died.
Yeah, so they think that they're actually having alcohol poisoning. So back in 2002, I did a high profile death dissection on alcohol poisoning because there was this case where in June of 2022 in London, South Africa, 21 teenagers ranging from 13 to 17 died at a bar. And all 21 of the teenagers at autopsy ended up having methanol in their system. So some places, like disreputable bars in other countries, when you go on vacation and stuff, they try to water down their product by serving alcohol that's cheaper to people in order to make more money. So sometimes they use an alcohol called methanol. So normal alcohol is called ethanol that you would drink at vodka, wherever like that. Methanol is not considered to be acceptable in the human body at any level. So no amount of it's safe, and it's toxic. Methanol's cheap as hell. You can get like 5 gallons of it from Home Depot for $40 or $50, right? Whereas the same amount of ethanol would be almost $200. So they take some of it thinking that they're just going to water down. So you have a bottle of vodka and, you know, it's half full. Oh, I'll just put some methanol in it and fill it up, and they won't know the difference kind of thing. And it's just, you could have like such a small amount. It says for extremely toxic to humans, only 8 ounces can kill an adult. So think about a soda can is 12 ounces, right? A smaller than amount of soda can could kill an adult. So they're thinking that that's what happened to these poor people that ended up dying from this. I think one was American tourist, and the other ones, did you get where they were from?
2 were from Denmark, 1 American, and one that recently died was from Australia, and her friend is still in the hospital in critical condition. So also,
yeah. So you just have to be careful if you go on vacation, because it happens sometimes. I mean, obviously, like if you're in another country and you're in a reputable area, you don't have to worry about this. But this is definitely something that is reported from time to time when people go on vacation. Yeah.
All right. So yesterday, this new documentary came out about JonBenet Ramsey. I mean,
I can't imagine if you listen to this show, you've never heard of this case. It's like one of the most famous true crime cases of all time. But just in case you're unfamiliar, JonBenet was 6 years old when she was found dead in her parents' basement. It was the day after Christmas, right?
Yeah.
All right, so day after Christmas. This case is still unsolved. They don't really know who did it. There's been much speculation over the years whether the parents were involved, whether the little brother might have done it. You know, JonBenet was also huge in the beauty pageant scene, and this was like way before Toddlers and Tiaras, and everybody kind of knew about these childhood beauty pageants. So there's been a lot of criticism of the parents for putting her in these pageants, which, you know, I think in general, people have a problem with these pageants because they over-sexualize children and they make them look like adults when they're just, 6 years old. And it could be a problem with pedophiles in particular. And they faced a lot of criticism over that. And now the dad is saying in this new show that he's basically slamming the criticism of the beauty pageants, saying that JonBenet loved doing them. And it was this great opportunity for her and his wife to spend time together.
So they're slamming the mom for getting her involved in it?
Yeah, so there's just, I think both parents get hit with criticisms about putting her into the pageant. I think there was this speculation for a while that she had been in these pageants and maybe a predator had seen her there, and then the family had done this in their home Christmas tour where people were able to come and tour their big lavish home, and then they think somebody went in there and was already eyeing her up and then got the layout of the house and was able to easily go in the house and find her and kill her, right? So that has been like this long-running speculation, but that's also unproven. The case is still cold, but yeah, lots of critiques about putting her in the pageants at all.
Well, I mean, in theory, this is before the internet and stuff, so that very well could be a thing if she was a well-known, like more famous child in the neighborhood than the average kid that wasn't on the radar for somebody like that. I used to have opinions about this case just based upon, because like all you have to go off of is what you hear in the media and stuff. But then someone that I used to work with actually was related to them, like a very close relationship. And when I heard some from their perspective, it kind of changed my mind a little bit, just because we know how the media is and how they focus on certain things and they ignore certain things because they just want people to click on their stories or whatever. So
Yeah.
a lot of it is, I mean, I still don't know what happened, but I'm a little bit more open-minded to hearing other things, because especially when this happened, it was just kind of like they focused right away on the parents, and then there was a period where they focused on the brother because he had that weird interview with Dr. Phil. But then at the same time, you have to like watch that interview and think, okay, this little kid was a child when his sister was murdered, and imagine just like the weird life he had after that, right? So I don't really know what to think in this situation. I think all of us could agree, like most people that grow up in a lower to middle class situation just don't even understand any of this way of life, living as a multimillionaire, having these lavish parties or tours or whatever, and just having a child doing these pageants all the time, and the ransom note and the money and the bonus that the dad got was like, I mean, wasn't the bonus like over 100,000? It was some insane amount of money. Even back then was just way more than any person, like average person, even makes a year. You know what I mean? Like it just, everything is just like on this other level of being hard to understand, like how these people live, basically is what I'm trying to say. So
Yeah, I mean, this case has been, so sensationalized, I'm sure in part because it hasn't been solved yet formally. It's at a point where, will we ever really know? I mean, I haven't watched this new docuseries yet because it just came out last night. I'm planning to watch it over the weekend, so maybe it'll, give me a new perspective on it. They were basically saying before they released it, they said it investigates the mishandling of the case by law enforcement and the media, ultimately revealing the relatively simple steps that could be taken to finally solve it. I don't know if they have new information that we don't. I'm sure.
I thought that there was some kind of DNA evidence that
that isn't being tested. There's something that has to do with DNA that they feel they could just easily like lay this to rest or whatever. And I know that the dad has been going to CrimeCon and he's very involved with the whole true crime field right now, trying to get answers, because obviously if he's been vindicated and he's getting older, the wife is already dead. Like this was how long ago? Didn't they say that I feel like she would probably be a little bit older than you, right? Because I think you were a baby when that happened. Do you remember what year it was?
This happened in 96.
Yeah, so you were.
So I was 2.
Yeah, you were little. So she was 5 or 6, right? So she was just a little bit older than you.
Yeah.
But I mean, you're going to be 30 next week. So this is how long this case has been going on. And just imagine really being a parent and just not really having an answer before you die. That would just drive you crazy. You know what I mean?
Well, yeah, and the wife died in 2006. So, she went 10 years never knowing any answers. The dad's been going all this time, and then you have all this criticism of everybody around you for how you handled it, your potential involvement. I mean, there was theories floating around that the handwriting on the ransom note matched the mother's handwriting. There was, the daughter JonBenet was sexually assaulted. I think if they kept the kit from when they examined her, they might be able to do DNA evidence now. I just don't really know what they have now that the documentarians are saying could very easily solve this
All right, well,
case.
watch it and report back to us.
I will. I am really interested to just see what they have to say about it. But all right, this next case is like mind blowing. This was an episode of Weeds. I don't know if you remember. Remember we used to watch that show?
Yeah.
So I don't know if you watched that far into it because I know you had stopped at some point.
Well,
but
it was like the best show ever. And then it got so ridiculous and silly a couple seasons in that I was just like, okay, I'm done here.
Well, this is when it started really going downhill because there was an episode nearly identical to this story we're about to talk about. So in the UK, this mom was really reluctant to let her 13-year-old son go with his father one night, but she finally gave in, probably just feeling guilt, like he should spend time with his dad. So immediately after picking the son up, the dad offers him cocaine. 13 years old.
Well, he said he's done it before. So why not give it to him again?
Yeah, the dad is saying that allegedly he did the cocaine before. So that's not it. They go to a hotel room and then 2 sex workers show up and one of them takes the boy back in a room and it says, quote, performs a sex act on him. So,
well, the dad was just being really nice. He really felt bad because his son had just broke up with his girlfriend and he thought that this was a good way to get him to get over this breakup.
I literally can't believe he's saying that, like trying to paint himself as this good guy. So apparently when the sex worker got there, the son was like, I am not comfortable at all going through with this. And he just said, don't be a pussy. And then made him go back there. The mom didn't hear from him and didn't get any communication from them at all until 4 o'clock in the morning when the dad sent a text on the son's phone that said, piss off.
Wow.
I'm sure
now,
that's exactly
we wonder why the
hear.
mother was reluctant to send her son to go hang out with this guy.
It says, piss off. I'll guard him with my life. Let the boy stretch his wings. I'm sure you're like, this is awesome. So obviously the boy gets home the next day, tells the mom what happened. He's like completely embarrassed. He didn't want to do it. He felt forced into doing it. And then she immediately took him to the police department.
So did he get arrested?
Yeah. So the dad's been sentenced to jail, I think, for 4 years. And he was given a 10-year sexual harm prevention order banning him from unsupervised contact with children.
Well,
but
listen,
he's maintaining in jail that he's a good dad and he was doing it to help his son's broken heart.
Well, the scary part is that he actually believes that, and there was some intention of him trying to help him out, but you're just like, where's your judgment, bro, right?
Yeah.
He set this kid up for potential sexually transmitted infection, cocaine use, heart damage, right?
Potential overdose?
Overdose, anything. And then on top of that, just think of the mental trauma, because not only did he not want to have sex with I don't know if she gave him a blowjob or whatever happened, but like he didn't want it. So he kind of got raped. And on top of that, what sex worker is having sex with the 13-year-old boy? That's a whole other issue.
the dad said he was 18, but like, I'm sorry, you could 100% tell the
Yes.
difference between a 13-year-old and 18-year-old.
Hey,
So what
he
happened?
might not have even had full pubic hair or a regular sized penis yet. Like, seriously.
What happened on Weeds was, you know, the uncle, like the dead dad's brother that came to live with them.
Yeah.
The uncle took the cute little boy, like the littlest brother, to like a happy ending massage place when he was 12 or 13 years old.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and that's when you're thinking, okay, this show is getting outrageous, and then this actually happening in real life. This guy, yeah. And I want to hear more about the sex worker and all that stuff, because that's like a whole other issue. But this poor kid is going to have relationship problems and shit when he gets older because of this. And then
he was gonna have relationship issues anyway because his dad clearly had an issue. So
yeah, it's just really, it really just sucks to think, because like, not only did he have this traumatic experience, but now he knows that his dad is getting arrested because of this, and his mom probably feels terrible for letting him go, because listen, this is not the first time she's thought that his judgment was off, clearly, right? Because normally, like, if your kid wants to hang out with their dad, you're like, okay, bye, I get freedom for a couple hours, right?
yeah.
So if you're saying, you know, I don't want my kid around you, then there's a reason that she said that. And I would love to know the reason, actually, because this guy clearly has the worst judgment of any human ever.
Oh, yeah. This episode is brought to you by The Gross Room.
Guys, we're always doing stories in The Gross Room that are relevant to all of these news stories that we talk about. So one of the ones that I talked about earlier was the high-profile death dissection on methanol poisoning, which would be really interesting for you guys to read. And the week before that, I did a high-profile death dissection on ethanol poisoning as well, because you can still die and have serious illness from drinking too much regular alcohol that you would get at a bar. So these things are really relevant to stories that we're talking about. And now The Gross Room is on sale for only $20 for the first year.
Yeah, so head over to thegrossroom.com for more info and to sign up today.
Okay, medical news.
Okay, so the world's tallest woman, who is 7'7", and the world's shortest woman, who is 2'7", have met for tea on Guinness World Record Day. Their height difference is 5 feet.
Did you see the video? It's so cute.
It really was the cutest thing ever.
You know what I really love? And this, I mean, my book is just all about this, showing differences in humans. And I love that in the past, these people would be born with these different bodies, right, that they're living in. And normally they would feel kind of shunned from society, and they just would feel very insecure about the way that they look, because they don't look like everyone else. But I love that these people are coming out and talking about the different syndromes that they were born with, or the conditions they were born with as well. And it's just like makes me happy, because it's just making it so then other people that are living in the country and everything, or in the world, feel comfortable being in their own bodies in front of people, because they're different, but it's kind of cool. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's cool to celebrate such extreme differences. I thought it was really cute that they said they do have things in common despite their height difference, which is loving makeup, self-care, jewelry, and doing their nails.
Oh, that's so cute.
And they did look really great together. I thought it was just such a cute little afternoon.
So this woman she's over 7 foot tall, which is just so tall, especially for a woman, right? She has this condition called Weaver syndrome. It's super rare. Only 50 people have been documented with it in the world. So it's so rare. And it causes changes to the bones, which cause people to have an abnormally tall stature, as well as changes in the face. And that's why she has ears that are a little bit larger than you would normally see on a person. But she also, side note, has the Guinness Book of World Records for the largest ears as well. So she's breaking lots of records. But this is a genetic disorder that sometimes can be passed on from a parent, but also it could be a spontaneous mutation in a gene as well. So it's just cool that she's embracing her different body and won a world record for being the tallest. And this article, so the smaller, do you recognize the smaller woman?
Yeah, she was in American Horror Story one season.
So the article said This is like typical news, just getting everything wrong. They said that she has a condition called achondroplasia, which is a typical, when you think of a little person, this is the most common anomaly that you would see, right? But achondroplasia, do you remember that show that was called Little People, Big World or something like
Yeah.
that? That person that's a little person, or the people that you would see in Wizard of Oz or something like that, those little people have achondroplasia. They have a very specific look, and it's because they have a problem with their cartilage ossifying as they grow or turning or hardening into bone. And that those people are average size of like 4'4", right? So she's 2 foot tall. She doesn't have achondroplasia. She doesn't have the same appearance as a person with achondroplasia. She has something that's a super rare thing called primordial dwarfism. And that's when you're having this small stature even as you're a fetus. You grow smaller, you're born smaller, and sometimes it's misdiagnosed as other things like nutritional deficiencies or things like that, or other kinds of syndromes. And there's not really that many people that are around the world that have that, but that's why she's just extremely small in stature like that, and she doesn't have achondroplasia. So I don't know where they got that from, but it's estimated that this type of dwarfism is so rare that it's 1 in 3 million people. There's only around 100 people in the entire United States diagnosed with it.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
Yeah, so she's just so cute. You just want to like pick her up and squeeze her.
I know. And the picture of them was super cute. They did say at certain times during the lunch it was kind of hard to make eye contact with each other because of the height difference. But I thought this was really cool that they did this. And it was a really unique way to celebrate different bodies. So we always love to see that.
Yeah.
All right. So this guy went on Reddit and was explaining that when he met his ex, that she had been raised vegan and wanted him to be vegan as well. So that would have been a deal breaker for me personally.
Right?
I know. They were together for over 10
Could
years.
you imagine like not being in a relationship because of cheese?
No. Like, what
No,
are you talking
No,
about? Cheese?
like I would.
is
That would be
everything.
like a deal breaker for me. Totally. Yeah.
Wait till you see the cheese spread I have for our Thanksgiving
Oh, I can't
appetizers.
wait.
Like, what are you even talking about not eating cheese? So basically, they were they were together for over 10 years, and they were both vegan at that point. And then they had 3 children that they also raised vegan. So after they broke up, he started questioning the vegan diet, saying he was struggling with depression and anxiety. His bills were really expensive when he would go out to eat or go to the grocery store. He was having trouble, making up for all the nutrients he was losing. And then when he started reintroducing animal products over time, he noticed he started feeling better. So then he started thinking about how it was affecting his children. So he did all of this research that found, problems with the vegan diet in children. And then he presented this information to the kids and asked them how they felt about it and if they'd be comfortable having animal products again. So
Not
guess-
again. I don't think they've ever had it.
they've never had it. Yeah. So the kids had never had it. So he was asking if they were comfortable trying it out. But he didn't tell the ex this. So he started slowly giving them animal products over time. And I guess she found out and freaked out super, so bad.
This is a really interesting topic, actually, because
Yeah.
on one sense, you're like, okay, these are his kids too, so he can have the choice as to what they eat. But for a vegan person, this is like, you might as well have given them cocaine and a sex worker, right? Like this is how these people think. So you can go back and forth because vegan is not always the healthiest diet, especially if you're not doing it correctly. So there's been studies done that being on a vegan diet is definitely good for cardiovascular health and for diabetes and all. There has been proof of that. But there's also adverse health effects that have been noted in the skeletal system, especially in children who are growing, and impairments in mental health. And what's interesting with this is that one of our friends just stopped being a vegan after 3 years because he was having some health issues and decided to do it. And his wife told me that he just started eating cheese again, right? And she's like, he has been, and like over the past couple weeks, cheese and milk products, she's like, he is literally in a good mood I haven't seen him in for the past 3 years.
Wow.
Now, and I'm just like, well, yeah, because cheese is awesome. And I didn't even really think about it when she told me that until I started looking into some things and saying that there definitely was an association with having a better mood and everything like that. Now, if you're a vegan person that does things correctly, then you usually don't have any of these issues. But think about kids and how picky they are anyway, and how terrible their diets are. You really have to take that into consideration because they're in this vital stage of brain growth and bone growth. So I don't think that, and the dad also consulted the physician, the family physician, who said that as well. So I don't think that he's wrong because he did it on himself and felt better and then wanted to do it. But it's kind of weird. It's almost like a religion thing too, right? Like one person wants to raise their kid this religion and the other one doesn't. Like, I don't really know what the rules are there, but ultimately he probably wins in this situation.
Well, yeah. And, he was facing criticism because he didn't tell her and she was mad and she thinks he's doing it to spite her. But I'm like, have you ever tried talking to an extreme vegan person about your other point of view? Because I used to work in a restaurant with
murder. Me is murder.
Yeah, I used to work in a restaurant with over a 50% vegan menu. And, we used to have this woman come in. We had Italian food. So like half of the menu was vegan Italian food, half of it was regular. And we used to have Parmesan on all the tables. And this woman freaked out so bad one time that the Parmesan was on the table, saying that we don't know what we're doing and we are disgusting people for having Parmesan on the table. And I'm like, you don't have to eat here. Like,
Well,
get out.
The thing is that it's the same if you're gluten-free or anything. Like, you can't, when you go into a restaurant that serves meat and cheese and dairy products, you can't separate it. Like, if it was real Parmesan cheese in a vegan restaurant, then that would be blasphemous, right? But like, this is a restaurant that serves cheese and serves cheese. So
Yeah.
there might be some kind of cross whatever at some point. You can't get mad about that, but
it wasn't even a cross-contamination concern. She was just appalled we had an animal product. And I'm like, this isn't a vegan strict restaurant. What are you talking about?
But from this mom's perspective, if she was raised vegan, and she's an older person, so being raised vegan back when I was younger was a little bit like revolutionary, right?
Yeah.
So she was raised that way and been that way her whole life. Like, she's been like indoctrinated to think that this is like the only way to be, which she's entitled to, right? And I do feel bad because, like I said, it's the same thing as let's say you're a devout Catholic your whole life and you want your kids to make their sacraments, everything, and then you're married and that's all good. And then all of a sudden, like, you get divorced and your husband's like, you know what, fuck that. I don't want my kids to do that stuff. You're it's like heartbreaking to you because you think that they're going to go to hell and burn in hell because they're not doing this stuff. But like, that's what happens when you get divorced and break up. You have to, like, and you don't have two parents on the same page. You know what I mean? Like, it sucks for her. I do feel bad about it.
No, listen, it sucks. And if you want to be vegan or you want to be Catholic or you want to do whatever, you can do whatever you want. But they are 50% his children too. So you have to respect, or you guys got to try to meet in the middle somewhere or have, a rational conversation about how you want to raise your kids. And you just have to respect it was in the best interest of the children, not to spite you. That's ridiculous.
Yeah.
So I do think it's a really interesting conversation, though, because now with all of these people being vegan, it's a very interesting thing because it's not like the kids necessarily had an allergy to it or something and the dad was force feeding the kids something they're allergic to. Like, it's a dietary preference. So I do think it's very interesting.
Well, and you could argue that human beings as Homo sapiens are omnivores. So technically, being vegan is going again. It's like making a cat's a carnivore and you're going to make them a vegan. Like, humans are supposed to be omnivores, so you're not abusing the child by giving them what they're supposed to have.
And again, like, to reiterate, if you're vegan the right way, it can be an incredibly healthy lifestyle.
personally, the vegans I encountered at the place I worked at were eating, vegan cheesesteaks, which was essentially like fried gluten put into more gluten with a fake over-processed cheese. So I don't particularly see that as being a healthy
Well,
thing.
I think now like all the stuff that's come out is like these fake meats are just not really considered healthy. Anything that's processed like that is just.
Yeah.
I mean
and
those fake burgers like bleed and shit. It's just like what the hell is this right now? I mean
listen,
they
and
taste good. I think they taste good, but whatever.
yeah, we had these vegan wings prior to me being gluten-free that were delicious. I preferred them over the chicken wings. They provided no nutrition at all. Like, at least chicken wings, you get protein. They
Yeah.
they had no nutritional value at all. They just tasted good, but whatever. I think this is interesting, and I think we're going to see this conversation coming up a lot over the next decade.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so there's this food critic named Keith Lee on TikTok. He goes to local restaurants and gives them reviews. So in Seattle, he had gone to this one local sushi spot that a bunch of people recommended he check out. So I guess after getting the food, he went into his car and filmed himself eating while reviewing the product and his experience at the restaurant. And I don't know if you watched the TikTok, did you?
I did.
Okay, so he's like lifting up all the individual pieces of sushi, saying what they are and eating them. And he lifts one of them up, and you just see on one of the pieces a little squiggle off of the side. And people started commenting, that thing is moving, worried.
Listen, I watched the video and I know that the restaurant has put out a statement because I guess this guy is going around like he's the next Zagat's food reviewer, right? Like he's making or breaking these restaurants. You go there and get a review by him, and then all of a sudden like these businesses are blowing up, right? So if you go and there's a negative review, like obviously that's really bad. But the restaurant put out a statement saying that sometimes the way the meat is, it can move when you squeeze it with chopsticks. And I'm like, that looked like a freaking worm to me, too. Honestly, I would have thought the same exact thing if somebody said, watch this video, look at this one part, I would have been like, there's a worm in it because there are worms that you've seen. We had that video that was floating around from Costco salmon that had the little tiny worms in it.
Yeah.
And you definitely could get parasites from fish, especially salmon, because salmon is like, could be freshwater and could be saltwater. And especially if you use a freshwater fish, there's like a higher percentage that you can get a parasite inside of it. But you've seen it happen before. And, when you're a sushi restaurant, you're supposed to be using sushi grade fish. But even the way that they're supposed to flash freeze it and keep it frozen for 10 days before they serve it and there's all these rules, but like that even doesn't 100% prevent this from happening. So I don't think it's like, ooh, don't ever go there again. I mean, it just happens. This is life. You're getting animals that get parasites, but don't deny and don't say that the chopsticks were making that happen.
Well, I also feel like they were like calling him out and saying that what he was saying was false. I'm like, he gave you a pretty good review. People in the comments were noticing it. He didn't.
I don't know if he came out with another video afterwards.
I think he came out after, like days later, and said that he felt fine. And he did hear from another person that they got sick from eating there.
Yeah, because when according to the video I watched, he put the thing in his mouth and didn't even realize that was happening.
No.
And I don't know, like if you squeeze a piece of meat, you could definitely think that the meat was moving, but this was like a little squiggly white worm off the edge of the meat, which is exactly what they look like.
It wasn't movement when you pick up food and it's flopping around. It was something like an external bug squirming around the outside. There's no mistaking it for something else moving. It's disgusting.
There's a worm that's called anisakiasis, and that is the typical one that we saw in the video from the Costco salmon. It's like a little white tiny worm that rounds up and it's squiggly. And I'm telling you, like I saw it and I think he's there. So poor restaurant. I mean, this is like the worst thing that could possibly happen for them, but like it might just be better to admit that these things happen and you're going to do more in the future. I don't know.
Well, now the restaurant's closed till further notice. So they claim they're doing an investigation to see exactly what happened, but who knows?
Well, okay, so could we think about this though? Like, why would they close if that
if they went back and checked all their fish and it was totally fresh, like why would they close?
Yeah, exactly.
All
And
right.
like, did they close
Or
by their
did-
own decision,
yeah.
or did the health department close them down?
Speaking of, I came across, I didn't even add this because this was like very specific to some Miami newspaper, but I came across this article the other day that had the names of multiple restaurants and all of the deficiencies these restaurants had, and they were so terrible. Like 14 live cockroaches and a dead rat, like all of this like listed out stuff, and I was just thinking, oh my god, every one of these restaurants is going to lose their customers. I mean, I guess they should if they're dirty, but
I mean, a restaurant that was down the street from the one I worked at forever in the city that my husband also worked at some point just got shut down by the health department. And, you know, they also published a list of all their violations, and they were saying something about them having like a record amount of rodent feces in the restaurant, which I always thought that place was really disgusting. And then my husband said when he worked there years and years and years ago, they had like a mummified rat on the shelf with like the ketchup and
you know
stuff.
what's
I'm like,
you know
cool.
what's nuts though? Like especially in the city, I feel like even when you have a house, it's very hard to keep like roaches out and rats and mice. They're just because they're so like if you walk around South Philly, you see them on the street just walking around. So if one would get into your house, it would be crazy, but also I would put more weight into it if that happened in the burbs versus in the city because you can't control how your neighbors are living as well. You know what I mean?
It's nearly impossible in a city restaurant to keep that stuff out completely. I think it's the way in which you're tackling it and having pest control coming in and where you're keeping the dry storage
Yeah.
and everything. And I think that's more of the issue, not them coming in general, because it's truly impossible in a city scenario to not have them come in at all.
Yeah.
But you have to be really over the top on top of it and clean and doing and storing everything properly.
Yeah.
All right, so for about a month, this 16-year-old girl was experiencing severe stomach pain and vomiting. She had gone to the hospital twice, and all of her tests were coming back normal at first. So they just kept sending her on her way with pain medication and some meds for ulcers. So none of those medications were working, and her pain kept getting worse. So she went to the hospital for the third time. And there they started going through a list of all the potential really common issues she could be facing. And they were shocked by what they ended up discovering was the source.
So I've heard this several times. These stories all read the same and end the same of these people that have this certain condition. So when they finally worked up this girl, they found out that she had a large ball of hair in her stomach that was trickling down into her small intestine. And this is called a trichobezoar. So tricho means hair, and a bezoar is just a ball of something. So you could get lots of different kinds of bezoars in your, I love that word too, by the way, in your GI tract. If you have an accumulation, like one time in the lab, I got a phytobezoar, which was just like this accumulation of, I don't even know what this dude ate, a lot of like celery or something, but it just was like all in a ball stuck inside of his small intestine. So we got it in surgical pathology. But what happens is these people have a condition called pica. So first they have something called trichotillomania, which is when they pull their hair out. So this is a mental illness condition that they have a compulsion that they pull their hair out, right? And then trichophagia is when you pull the hair out is the mania, and then when you ingest it, it's called trichophagia. And that's a condition that's pica. We talked about this before with weren't we talking about the kid that ate the stones or something, or that was in the gross room. I did a case of a kid that ate asphalt stones, or was
Oh,
no,
that-
that was a
that-
mystery diagnosis.
That was a mystery diagnosis, but we've talked about pica a couple times with the woman who ate all the crayons and then the person who ate like an entire dining ware set.
Yeah, so we talk about this in the gross room all the time, and we also talk about it on Mother Knows Death all the time. And that's when a person is eating something that's considered non-nutritional food, and that's usually due to a mental illness as well. Also can be due to nutritional deficiencies and things like that. So the interesting part of this particular case is not only did she have this trichobezoar in her stomach, which was the ball of hair, but she had something called Rapunzel syndrome, which is super bizarre, but it's when this hair starts moving down the GI tract into the small intestine. So when you pull out the hairball out of the stomach, it actually looks like Rapunzel's hair coming down. That's why it's called it. It's like this long tail of hair. And this tail of hair can go down into the small intestine, and it could actually perforate the small intestine. It could cause acute pancreatitis because it could block the pancreatic duct. And it's just like a more rare presentation of one of these hairballs.
You know, the Mutter Museum, like years and years and years ago, before they really sucked, like had this special exhibition called Fairy Tales or something, and they had an example of this Rapunzel syndrome.
Yeah, it's cool. I have a couple cases. So if you go in the grocery room, or if you're a grocery member now, and you could either search trichobezoar or just bezoar or hair, anything, Rapunzel syndrome. There's multiple cases that you could see what this looks like. It's kind of cool looking, actually, but it's terrible for a person because when you eat certain things, so you could have compulsions to eat things that will digest, but hair doesn't digest. So it's just going to stay in there and it's going to accumulate just like it does on your hairbrush. It's just going to keep accumulating into a big ball and it's going to get stuck in there. But it's the same story all the time that these people go in and they say they're having all these symptoms. And it's funny that doctors keep seeing these patients all the time and they're puzzled as to what's happening. And not one time are they like, are you eating anything that you shouldn't be eating? Just asking. And not that everybody would admit it, but that might narrow down some of the diagnoses in these situations.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think most people would admit it, which is probably why they don't. I don't know. It is weird.
I don't know. I just think
ask.
if I was a doctor and I was seeing a person that was just like, listen, like you went through this a couple years ago that you were having like it ended up being like gastritis or whatever, but you were just like having all these stomach pains, and then they would give you medicine and it wouldn't go away, and it just kept lingering and lingering, right? Like that would just be my first thing. Like, okay, I've ruled out GERD. I've ruled out this. Like, could it be that, like, did you eat anything weird? You know what I mean? Like something like that, but.
Well, that was annoying because I understand why they have to ask this, but every single time they're like, oh, did you take a pregnancy test? And I'm like, yeah, I think I ruled out the common issue. Thank you. Like, I'm not dumb. Thanks. Oh my God, that was driving me crazy. And then it ended up being gluten, so fun times. All right, so new research from the FDA has found that a very popular asthma drug, unfortunately one that a bunch of us have taken over the years.
All of my children.
All of your children may be linked to serious mental health issues.
Okay, so this drug is called Singular, whatever you say, however you say it. Montelukast is the generic name of it. My kids have been on it since they were 2 or 3 years old, like very little children. For asthma, it's a common medication to control asthma allergies. Maria was on it for years of her life too. So what's funny about this story is that my friend said to me years ago that her kid went on this drug when he was 2 years old. He's now 10, so this was 8 years ago. And she said that he got so crazy after he started taking that medication that she just took him off of it because she was like, he was acting so weird. It went from like being normal to acting completely crazy after taking this drug. It was very noticeable to this mom. So she stopped giving it to him and she went online and to all these like Facebook groups and Reddit groups and stuff like that and saw that there were multiple people that were complaining that their kids were exhibiting signs of psychosis and suicide in some cases, like crazy shit. And she's like, you know what? Like, I'm never giving that drug to my kid again. And so she told me that years ago. And then this story came out this week, 8 years after she's been hearing about this and noticing this. And it's like, why is the FDA so behind when all of these patients are complaining about this? This is a legitimate thing that now they're saying that the drug affects receptors on the brain that are in charge of a child's mood and impulse control, cognition, sleep, all things that are super important for a child to be acting mentally normal. And now you're just like, God, when like my kids were on it and it's like, Especially the little one when she's so moody and shit. You're just like, is that because she's been on this drug every single day for the past 5 years of her life? You know what I mean? It's nuts.
It's hard to say. It doesn't make me feel great as somebody that took it for such a long time and as an adult that experiences really severe anxiety issues. I'm not saying it's 100% linked to that. And of course, they're saying it's short term. So I don't think we're going to know until more studies are done if it's actually long term or not.
Yeah, but guess what they
Um,
also said? They also said that this pill was equivalent. It was so safe. It was equivalent to a sugar pill when it
well,
first came out.
they also said Oxycontin was so safe, and look how that turned out. Like, what are they? What are we
Exactly.
talking about here? It doesn't seem like they started investigating this until I think around 2019 when an astronomical amount of accounts online started popping up of suicides and these like psychological events started popping up on Reddit and all these other forums. So they were like, you know what, like we need to really start looking into this more. Even though you're saying this was dating back to potentially what, 2015?
Yeah, and
So
I didn't really, cause when my friend was telling me about it, she's like, "Oh, all these kids are killing themselves and this and that." And then I was kind of like, "All right, well, my my kids don't really exhibit those particular signs." So I just was like, "What?" Cause a lot of times online too, you have and I guess that's why the FDA kind of observes it for a while, because you have people saying things that might just not really be true either, kind of, or there's no correlation. But I think after seeing this and seeing that it definitely, like, the scientists involved and everything have said that it affects the brain and the receptors of the brain, I immediately, like, I was like, I'm not giving this to my kids anymore. I'm not doing it. I don't care if the benefits of it, which I don't even think that their asthma is super under control anyway. So I'm just kind of like, I don't care. I'm not doing this. Like, this is, and I don't think anybody should give this shit to their kids, honestly. Like, it's so scary because you're giving it to them thinking asthma, this and that. Like, you're not even thinking anything about their actual brain developing, that this could be a potential thing. So scary.
well, it's scary. I've said this a bunch of times on here. Like, there's a mild distrust with the FDA right now because of
Mild?
everything. Well, pretty severe on my behalf, but some people really still believe them. But after, all this information has come out about Oxycontin and how that's like, really skyrocketed this opioid crisis we have in this country. Well, really the entire world, but mostly this country. I think it's really important everybody looks into that. With that said, I'm not against taking medication at all. I just think we really need to look at certain things and historically what has happened with them. And I think them putting the little like black label on this medicine isn't really doing it justice. I think they owe us having external resources investigating this too, and not just like what they say is what it is. It could be much worse. It could be less severe. I would just feel more comfortable if it was protocol, if multiple agencies did, independent
Well, what
research.
sucks is that this is in the news right now, but let's say, like, in a year or two, if a person goes to the allergy doctor and the doctor prescribes this to them, and they don't really know, they've never taken it before, so they don't know, like, they might take the medication and not even really know about it. Like, what, I don't even understand what is a black label. It's just like saying cigarettes are bad kind of thing.
Yeah, it's like basically they had to put it on Oxycontin too, saying there was really dangerous side effects of taking the medication. It doesn't mean it can't be sold or given out or prescribed or anything. It just means like we're letting you know that our research has found that there's really severe side effects from taking this medication. But I don't think a lot of people even understand what that means.
Who,
So,
yeah, who would have their kid have their mood unstabilized to take an asthma drug? Like,
and doctors
hopefully it'll
get a
just,
lot
like,
of
weed itself out, you know what I mean?
incentive to give these medications out, and I don't think they're always fully transparent about the side effects. So let's start thinking about stuff like that. I think it's very important to do your independent research before you start taking anything instead of just taking it at face value. I think that's the lesson we need to
Even
learn
doing
from
your
all of
independent
this.
research, though, it's like shit gets blocked on the internet. You know what I mean? Like, you could search all you want, but I mean, my friend did come across all of these groups at some point. But I'm more concerned with the time it takes for people that are reporting all of these side effects for all of these different kinds of medications, drugs, etc., and not it, like for it to become a thing. It takes forever. So when you hear, and it has to do with anything that's new, because the new ones are obviously like the vaccine was one thing, and then now it's like Ozempic and all those side drugs. Like when you are watching social media and hearing people, same we could say about breast implants too. When you're hearing the average people bring up the same complaints all the time that they're getting sick from these things, pay attention, because it's going to come up in 5-10 years from now that, oh yeah, that was bad. You know what I mean?
I think every single person in the world should watch the documentary, The Crime of the Century. I believe it's on HBO Max, whatever it's called now. It's about what happened with Oxycontin. I think it's very important in understanding the manufacturing of that drug and the healthcare system. I think everybody should watch that, and then it'll really open
And then
your
report
eyes.
back to us.
Report back. I'm sure some people are going to have problems with what we're saying, but when I watched that, it changed. I'm not even one of those people that's like, I watched this documentary and it changed my life. Like, that one legitimately changed my life. It really opened my eyes. And I think it's very important for everybody to see. So,
Okay. Other death news.
in India, this 25-year-old guy had an epileptic fit and went to the hospital. So when he got there, the doctors said they tried to perform CPR, but his heart rate flatlined and they just declared him dead. Didn't want to do an autopsy, sent him straight to the mortuary. So when he gets to the mortuary, they put him on this funeral pyre, which seems like this. How would you explain this thing?
It's just like a pile
It's like
of
a
wood.
fire pit for humans.
Yes. That's like what
cremate
it
them.
is. It's a fire pit for humans. It just looks like a bunch of wood that
Yeah.
you just put a person on top of instead of like a pig for a luau. It's like the
kinda
same
like
kind of thing.
Salem witch trial-esque. So, like, to visually what it looks like, I don't know. But apparently doing this is part of Hindu tradition. This is what this article is saying. But they put this guy on this funeral pyre. They said literally moments before they lit this thing on fire to essentially cremate him, people noticed him squirming around on it, and he was not dead at all.
Yeah. So they took him back to the hospital, and he wasn't like, it's not like he was perfectly like, hey guys, what's happening? Like he was not doing well. And I took him to a hospital and then tried to transfer him to another hospital, which was like 100 miles away or something insane. And he ended up dying en route this time.
For real this time.
For real this time. But he was alive and was almost burned alive. Just
It's insane.
And I guess they said that there was some kind of postmortem report filled out, even though he didn't have an autopsy, saying that he had COPD and stuff. And I don't know, like, I don't know the way the procedures that are done in India when a person dies, but they seem to be taking it seriously that this happened.
Yeah, the doctors involved have been suspended. They're doing an investigation to see exactly what happened. I think most people do find this completely unacceptable.
We've kind of had a couple stories now this year that have involved people either going to the morgue or going to the funeral home, like being alive still when they were declared dead. It's kind of alarming.
Is it like a laziness thing? I just don't
No,
understand.
I don't know what the procedure is when you pronounce someone dead because I've never done it. You know what I mean?
You
It's
just get them after.
I just get them afterwards. I don't know. There has to be some kind of a checklist that's like, this person's definitely dead, going down the list of like what vital signs or lack thereof that they have. So I don't know. It's just the shit is just crazy. I've obviously never had a situation of it happening. I don't know. Every single time we reported it's in another country. It hasn't been here so far. Not to say that it hasn't happened here, but
it
at
will
least
soon
this
enough.
year, at least this year when we're doing the news and stuff, we haven't reported it here. So I don't know, because like I said, I'm not a doctor. I would think that if you're a person that pronounces people dead all the time, that it should be very clear that like a person is dead. There should be absolutely no way of mistaking it, but I don't know.
I don't know. All
Like,
right,
I
let's
just
move
don't
on.
know. What do you say in this situation?
Let's
Okay.
move on to questions of the day. Every Friday at the @MotherKnowsDeath Instagram account, we put a little story up and you can ask it whatever question you want. Do you routinely take samples during autopsies? If so, what are they?
So, yes, we do. It depends on where the autopsy is being done. So, in the hospital, we're usually doing them along with residents that are in pathology that are learning. So, we do a little bit extra than you would normally do, like at a medical examiner's office, for example. But in the hospital, if we're doing a full autopsy, we will sample every single organ and we'll actually keep a little piece of every single organ in a jar called a stock jar, which we could go back to later. Because, for example, when we take all the organs out and we look at them and then we put them back in the body and send them to the funeral home just a couple hours after the autopsy, we don't have the body anymore. So let's say, for example, we look at something under the microscope and it looks kind of funny and you're like, oh my God, I want to look at this lung again. Well, you can't do it if the body's gone already. So if you keep a little piece in a jar, then you're able to go back and look at it again. So we keep those jars in the morgue for a couple months and then dispose of them with the medical waste. But yeah, especially every hospital autopsy that I've done, we sample everything. Even like if the guy died from cancer, we'll take a sample of testicles. We just look at every single thing. Prostate, small bowel, large bowel, appendix, gallbladder, every organ we take samples of normally. But if you're doing an autopsy for forensic purposes, like let's say, for example, a person was found dead, they dropped dead, and you do the autopsy and you see they have a pulmonary embolism or something. There's really no reason to sample the testicles because, like, who cares? That's not what killed the guy. So, but they have way more bodies to autopsy when we're doing it. Like, oh, we want to look at this guy's prostate because we want to see if he had cancer, then you didn't know about it, just to learn something. But like medical examiner case, they don't care about that.
All right. Do you still sell signed copies of your book?
Sure. I mean,
Well, no, wait, don't say that. So we don't sell signed copies of the book. You can get a sticker that you can sign and get personalized that you could put in the book. If you're a gross room member and you win one of our, What Is It Wednesday or our monthly giveaway, you can get a signed copy sent to you where you sign the physical book, but we do not sell those.
Yeah. That's like one of the so when we play games in the gross room, so we have a couple. We do every month we just do a giveaway. And then also we do What Is It Wednesday every week where you could win. We have a couple different games that you could win stuff for. And that could be one of your choices of prizes. Like, can't they pick something from the website too if they want like merch or something? Or
yeah, there's all different prize options. So yeah, if you have a book already or you want a signed copy and you don't want to like try to win one of the games, then you could go to thedoramadder.com/book. And then there's a link there where you could get a personalized book plate sticker where you could get it addressed to yourself. You could get a little message on it. You could just get a signature. And then you could stick that in a book that has to be purchased separately.
yeah. And you could also get a little Christmas card, holiday card that I'll write whatever within reason, whatever you want in it. And then there's some opportunities like when I went to CrimeCon, I did a book signing. Another side note is every time I'm in a Barnes & Noble or something and I see my book, I sign it when I'm at the store. So you might just like randomly, you might randomly come across that from time to time. But yeah, they're your options.
You should be able to hit a couple on your upcoming trip.
On my road trip, yeah.
So that'll be fun. And you should just do like a fun little tour and post videos and then people could go on scavenger hunts and find them.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, but that's how you guys can get them. I think right now, if you can either go to thedoramadder.com/book, but if you go to just thedoramadder.com or thegrossroom.com, there's a little shop tab and there's like a little drop down thing. And there's a tab that says book plates and holiday cards, and you could click that. And you could also find merch there too. So if you're looking to shop for the holiday season. If you have our newsletter, we also sent a newsletter out yesterday with all this information too.
Yeah, make sure you sign up for the newsletter because there's lots of information on there about our recent posts and just like things that's going on.
Yeah, and the link for that is in the description of every episode too, so you can find it there. All right, last. Favorite Thanksgiving side dish?
Oh, the Paula Deen corn casserole.
That's my favorite too, and I also I make this sweet potato casserole, and I like mixing them together. I think that's the best flavor in the world.
Well, like the Paula Deen corn cake seriously takes like 4 sticks of butter or something insane.
Yeah.
It's
I'm making
that's
two big
why it's
dishes of
good. I hate making it because I feel guilty eating it afterwards because I'm just like, I can't believe that this is like this. But that might be like that every single time you go out when foods taste good, that there's just like 10 sticks of butter in something.
Yeah, of course it is.
I brought my kids to this overrated cookie place. I'm sure you guys know what I'm talking about because they think it's all the rage because they see it on their stupid YouTube videos. And I couldn't believe that the cookies were almost 1,000 calories each.
What?
For one cookie. Like
how big
almost,
are they?
I mean, they're big. They're like, I don't know.
Like for us, like a 1-portion cookie though.
Yeah, I mean, I could eat it in one sitting. If they were good. I just don't even understand why you would waste that many calories. Like,
I understand why they have to put.
A mini cake wouldn't even have that much, right? Like, it just seems like a lot.
Well, that's not true necessarily. Have you ever read the calories on like the bakery section at Wegmans? Those fruit tarts have even a lot.
I hate the calorie list situation. Can I just say that?
Why they do it, but it ruins it when you're just like, I just want to have an unhealthy snack, but I don't want to know it's 1,000 calories.
Yeah, that's why I actually prefer going to like a little family-owned restaurant because they don't list that stuff. Because if you go to any kind of a chain place, you're just like, there's like this more upscale chain steak place near us, and it'll say like it's 1,000 calories just for like one part of it, like the steak or what, and you're just like. And then I'm like, oh, I don't want to eat that. You know what I mean? But when you're out to eat, you want to just like enjoy sometimes. I do understand it for every day though, because I think a lot of people, especially me, when I was a teenager and I didn't really know about like calories and stuff, I didn't really understand like how you got fat, because we didn't learn that in school. I remember I was drinking these like white chocolate raspberry mocha things from Starbucks, like a venti every day. And then someone was just like, yo, do you know that they're like a lot of calories? Like you could get fat for them. You're only supposed to have like under 2,000 calories a day. And this one's like 800. And I was like, what? Like, you know what I mean? Like, I didn't even know that. So maybe a lot of people don't really realize how many calories, and you make better choices. Like if you go to Starbucks often, that maybe you won't get like a 500 calorie one every single day because obviously you'll start getting fat.
Yeah, but also, like, if you look at if you get, like, one of the Christmas coffees, for example, right? They're all 500 calories, and it's because they all have, like, 5 to 6 pumps of whatever syrup in a medium coffee. That is disgusting.
Yeah, but I guess if they weren't listed, people wouldn't realize that they were, you know what I mean? Like, you don't really realize that. And then, but I don't know. It's like a double-edged thing because sometimes I'm like, I like to know what it is, especially something that I want to drink like every single day or eat every single day. But at the same time, you're like, well,
I don't think you should be counting calories on Thanksgiving. I mean, it's like a day of indulgence. So
no, I know.
I think it's okay to have an extra buttery side.
It's just so good.
It really is. All right, guys. Well, we will see you Thursday with our Thanksgiving special episode. If you have a shocking story, please submit it to stories@motherknowsdeath.com. And we are also posting every couple of days on our Instagram account a holiday Q&A little box. So you guys could ask us questions for our big questions episode coming up in a couple weeks.
Have a good Thanksgiving, guys.
Thanks.
Thank you for listening to Mother Knows Death. As a reminder, my training is as a pathologist assistant. I have a master's level education and specialize in anatomy and pathology education. I am not a doctor and I have not diagnosed or treated anyone, dead or alive, without the assistance of a licensed medical doctor. This show, my website, and social media accounts are designed to educate and inform people based on my experience working in pathology, so they can make healthier decisions regarding their life and well-being. Always remember that science is changing every day, and the opinions expressed in this episode are based on my knowledge of those subjects at the time of publication. If you are having a medical problem, have a medical question, or are having a medical emergency, please contact your physician or visit an urgent care center, emergency room, or hospital. Please rate, review, and subscribe to Mother Knows Death on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, or anywhere you get podcasts. Thanks.